Baathists or anybody else to become part of the government that was being formed. And there was an internal problem between Sunnis and Shias, and most of those people are the ones who became ISIS. Okay, and they blame the United States, and then what you know what they're doing. Okay,
right.
So they were just left without a voice in the government, and they felt that they wanted to be heard, and this is the only way they feel they can be heard. And as far as hurting the West, they'll take the most innocent people, and behead them, and they don't care. Very disrespectful to the bodies as well. I mean, and who do they pick on? They pick on photojournalists who are only taking pictures, a former Army Ranger who converted to Islam, went back to Iraq because he was working with some sort of an aid group, and they picked on him and beheaded him. You're not talking about hardened criminals or people who killed many Muslims, and not to mention how many Syrians they killed and other Muslims. Okay?
Yeah. That's a great point you brought up, and I think if you think about it, it comes down to are people's behavior consistent with their actual belief system. And what I mean by that is, and I have to apologize as a Christian to anyone that has ever been mistreated by a Christian in the sense that they've insulted you, treated you in a way that's negative.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was also one of the things that I happened to bring up also before we were...
Well, he wasn't listening to us.
I know, but I'm saying, I'm going to explain it again. The fact that, you have many different sects of Christianity. They don't wage war against each other. Okay? In the Jewish faith, you have Orthodox, Conservative, and Reformed. Now, basically, they don't wage war within each other. But here you have Sunni and Shia, and this has been going on almost since time immemorial.
And the Kurds.
Since the religion was formed by Muhammad in, what was it, 613 or something?
Yeah.
Or 600, around that time. I mean, and everybody tiptoes around, look, the United States still hasn't and never will fully recover from 9/11. All right? So, who's the enemy? Well, the enemy were terrorists. But all too often, you hear them referred to as Muslim terrorists, and the point is, yes, they are Muslims, but, the assimilated Muslims who live in this country are trying to say, don't judge us by what they did.
Right.
Okay.
And the thing is, I was trying to say is that their behavior is just they're being consistent with what the President Muhammad himself sent. And the fact that he executed that kind of behavior, I mean, the perfect example, if you want to contrast, say, Jesus to Muhammad, with Jesus, they had caught, a woman was caught in adultery, and she was brought forward to him.
Hello?
And he simply said to them, any of you who've committed sin, throw the first stone.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. You would sort of cut off in the middle, but I knew what you were going to say. It's true. He said,
right.
I mean, yes, according to the laws. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I mean, who's now sin cast the first stone, right? They all leave. He forgives the lady, and she goes on, right? Muhammad had the exact same story for him as well. And the Jewish people, their woman presented the exact same question. And what he did, and what he said, bury her in the ground and stone her to death. I mean, that to me, it sums up the contrast of what we're talking about. So when Muslims do that, they're being consistent with what they're. So beyond religion, the number one killer in history, when we talk about belief system, is the atheist belief system. The 20th century, the highest count that directly tied to ideology. When communism rose up around the world, they were killing people left and right.
Time out. Time out. We can't hear you again. You're breaking up like you did at the beginning.
Okay.
I don't know
How
why.
about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just saying that the atheist, which is religion, because atheism is a religion, they caused the most damage in the history of mankind. If you look at the 20th century, when communism rose up all around the world, they were killing people in massive numbers. In my home country of Ethiopia, millions of Christians were killed. In Cambodia, in China, in Russia, all places around the world, massive amounts of people were killed because they didn't want people believing in any form of religion at all. They were bulldozing churches, turning them into museums, and executing people who refused to make allegiance to the state and renounce their beliefs. That is a fact, and it's documented, right? And it's what I find appalling to me is I have atheists, and when I go to college campuses, that come to me and say, "Oh, religion did this. Look at the Christians had the Crusades or the Inquisition," and I say to them a simple question. The Christians who did that, or any Christian who kills anybody in the name of God, are they actually behaving consistent as what a Christian's supposed to do, or are they being a hypocrite? And everyone says, of course, they're a hypocrite because we know Jesus didn't advocate any type of violence, let alone killing another person, right? He talked about loving your enemies. Then I say to them, Then I say, what about what the atheistic movement of the 20th century, when they were brutally murdering millions upon millions of people with no hesitation whatsoever? Were they behaving consistent with their worldview? The answer is yes, because in a naturalistic worldview, it's survival of the fittest. At the end of the day, all that matters is you and advancing your particular gene pool and benefiting you, even if it comes at the expense of other people. And in their case, they were acting consistent because they were eliminating people that were hindering them from advancing. That was the whole reason Hitler killed the Jews. It was the whole reason he killed who he deemed inferior, because he wanted to advance the human race. That was Darwinism being applied in the most literal and strictest sense without any form of decency to restrain it.
Hitler wanted to spread the Aryan race, not the human race. Okay?
That's what I'm saying. He deemed the Aryan race superior. Right.
And going back even further to the Russian Revolution, okay, originally, communism had no room for religion. Okay, it was the state. It was almost like the novel 1984. Okay, everything was the state. That's why they oppressed Jews, they oppressed religious Eastern Orthodox Catholics. Okay, you basically had to be an atheist. That's what it was.
And they killed the people who didn't. They killed them.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
True.
And I never hear anyone say anything about that. I hear about the Crusades every single day, but I never hear one person talk about the 20th century and what atheism did to the entire world.
Well, you know why? Because they say that the Crusades were a holy war. The Pope gave his sanction to the Knights Templar and all of the soldiers. Well, I say soldiers, but the fighters from the West who were going. They were considering the Muslims the infidel. Okay, they were fighting against the infidel. They were fighting against Syria and Xerxes and Darius. Okay, that was their enemy.
Right. I mean, again, that was a perfect example of what ignorance can lead to. In the 10 to 1200s, which is when these happened, at the time, the Bible was only printed in the language of Latin, which only bishops and those in the clergy in the Catholic Church could read. The common people had no clue what it said. That's why the Pope made a declaration saying anyone who goes to the Holy Land fights gets a free to heaven, all forgiven. Now, any Christian today, if you were to tell them that, who's read the Bible, would dismiss that as absolutely ridiculous, because the Bible doesn't teach anything like that. That's why in the 1500s, when the Bible was actually translated to English, French, and German so that people could read it, people eventually broke away from the Catholic Church because they saw how they were exploiting the people, right? So then when you get to...
That was Martin Luther. You had the Protestant Revolution. Reformation,
and that's why,
rather.
Right, and that's why you had all that anti-Semitism in the past, where Jews were being brutally killed by Christians because they thought they were doing what God wanted them to do. But now today, when you have Christians who read the Bible, Christians are the number one supporter of Israel without any question in the United States of America. They advocate for them like no one else does. The vast majority, forget the rest of America, the rest of the world is against Israel. But Christians, evangelical Christians, stand by Israel. Why? Because they've read the scriptures and they know what God has said about that. Now, whether you believe in that or not, that's one thing. But I'm saying when people have an informed belief, they usually act what their beliefs are about. But when they don't know what they even believe, they can be manipulated by people above them who will take advantage of their ignorance.
True. And it took Pope John the 23rd, who finally, in his first ecumenical council, said that the Jews were not responsible for the death of Jesus. Okay? Before then, you had popes, especially during the Holocaust in World War II, who sort of closed their eyes to things that were happening. But then again, the United States sort of closed their eyes to things that were happening too. Most people couldn't believe the things that Hitler was doing because Germany basically was always such an advanced philosophical country. Okay, how could people allow themselves to do that? But you had an eloquent speaker who knew how to stir up the crowd, and they needed a scapegoat, and as far as Hitler was concerned, it were the Jews. But I just watched the other day, I'm sure you saw the movie 42, Jackie Robinson.
Yes,
Hello?
I did. Yep.
Okay. I would say about a third of the way into the movie, somebody wrote an article. A journalist wrote an article about Ben Chapman's railing and cursing at Jackie Robinson, calling him the N-word and everything else. And when it was brought up to Ben Chapman, all right, he said it was probably written by one of those Jew journalists. Okay, that was the mindset of the people back in the 40s and into the 50s, and maybe even for some people into the 21st century, because this is what they believe. The Jews have always espoused, civil rights for all people. Okay, and what could I say? It was just very interesting listening to that. Because let's face it, there wouldn't be an NAACP if it wasn't for Jewish lawyers and Jewish money. Okay, and because they were able to identify with the black struggle,
right,
in order to gain acceptance. Just basic rights: the right to vote, the right to exist, the right not to have to drink from a different water fountain, or use a different bathroom, But I have to tell you, what's your name, by the way?
Michael.
Michael, okay. I'm Mark, and Felix is right next to me. We unfortunately have to cut this short because we only have like 5 minutes left. But I want to thank you very much.
We really enjoyed your call.
For calling up. I enjoyed your call. I enjoyed our discussion. Okay, and every Monday and Friday we're on at 9 o'clock, so feel free to call us at any time.
Michael, may I ask what you do for what you do?
As far as what, for a living?
Yeah, what do you...
Oh, I have my own restaurant here.
Okay.
Good for you.
Great.
It's a 7-day-a-week business. You must be, in order to keep it going, I don't envy you. I really don't envy you.
Yeah, you know the struggle, sir.
My son trained as a chef, so he went to Johnson & Wales, so I know exactly what you're going through.
I really like the show, guys. I'll definitely be listening in the future, and thanks for having me on, and you guys have a great night.
No, thank you, and you have a great weekend. And Pete, please
call
in again. If you're not too tired, call in again.
Elisa,
okay.
We actually have another caller on. Elisa, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Just in time to say goodbye to Elisa.
All right. Listen, thank you again.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Elisa. Until next time.
Until next time is right. You know.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone. And Lisa, thanks for your patience and all your help, okay?
And think about what day you want to do it.
It's my pleasure.
Think about what day you want to do it. What Saturday, I guess.